What would be your improvements or modifications to this proposed process to start a brand new company / entity like an agency for SEO sake? Number one, secure a domain name, preferably an established domain, a GMB profile with a physical address that you can keep for a while, and other social profiles. Two, hire someone on Fiverr to create all the standard citations. Do keyword research and create content silo plan, build or buy an SEO Shield. I'm not sure what the question is here. What would be your improvements or modifications to this proposed process? Secure a domain name, preferably an established domain. I don't like that. If you're going to be building like private blog network sites or lead gen assets or something like that, it might make sense to buy a previous, a dropped domain or an expired domain or whatever. You got to, obviously you want to check your backlink profile, make sure, and not just the backlink profile, guys, also check the Wayback Machine. So archive.org. If you're going to be looking at expired domains or previously registered domains, essentially, you want to check both it's a current backlink profile as well as look at archive.org. So the Wayback Machine, and take a look and see if it has ever been, really, really spammy and things like that, because that can affect its performance. Now, again, if you're building a lead gen asset or something for like a private blog network, a PBN site, then, it might make sense to buy a previously registered domain that has some sort of a history that is not spammy and has maybe some, backlink profile existing already. But I don't like to do that if I'm setting up a branded asset, right? Because what I'm looking to do is create a brand. And so I like to register new domains for that. And something that is, a brandable, not something super generic. I am building a really generic site right now just because I'm testing something, but usually I just go with something that is branded. So like, a brand name that then if I want to add additional locations, right? So if I wanted to expand that out, I can do that by, I've got now a brand and I can add to that brand, as opposed to just buying, if you were to always, I guess essentially you could buy a previously registered domain and build a brand around that too. But I typically like to start off new, unless I'm doing it specifically for like, a standalone lead generation asset or for a PBN site, which I don't do much of that. I started to build a PBN earlier this year and I bought about 8 or 10 domains. And I guess I got screwed because I bought domains that had some metrics and then I added them to a hosting account and had another company build the WordPress sites for me. And within, a month, the metrics that were, were tied to the domain or associated with the domain when I purchased them dropped and they went to 0. And so I think that was some of those, I know there are domainers out there that know how to manipulate domain metrics when they're up for sale. And then once they get sold, they remove whatever they did to manipulate the metrics and you get stuck with a domain that you should have just registered brand new to begin with. And that's kind of what happened to me. So I said, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother with PBNs anymore. There's no need to. All the stuff we've been teaching over the years works. I did want to have kind of a single niche PBN, but I decided I'm not going to bother with it because it's just too much hassle. So Rugs, like I said, I would start with a branded domain, not something previously dropped or registered. That's my opinion. Okay. Establish a physical address. Well, it depends on the business. Is it a service area business? Is it going to be used for lead gen? If it's going to be used for lead gen or a service area business, you don't need to establish a physical address. You might want to register a GMB, but you wouldn't want to publish your physical address if it's a service area business or if it's not a valid business location, right? Think about it, because again, if you're thinking about selling it or leasing it out or whatever it is that you're going to do with it, if as I always recommend, guys, like I don't do lead gen assets unless they're service area businesses, because you can't, what do you do when somebody clicks to like driving directions, for example, and it takes them to a location that does not actually have a business, right? So again, people come into the mastermind and say like, yeah, I was thinking about getting in the lead gen for dentists. Oh yeah, how are you going to do that? Are you going to have a dentist office listed in GMB that when somebody clicks driving directions, they go to some house or some non-existent address? And what are they going to do? They're going to complain to Google about it, right? And eventually you'll get it suspended. I've seen it happen. So I always recommend service area businesses with no published addresses if you're going to be doing lead gen stuff. All right. So let's see. hire someone on Fiverr to create all the standard citations. I don't ever use Fiverr for citations, Rugs, ever. There's much better options out there. Loganix, semanticmastery.com/LOGANIX. They have a outstanding citation service where you can get a whole bunch of them built all at once. There's 2 different levels that you can do that, or you can get the monthly citation service, which is really good because I think it's 20. Every month they build 20 structured citations, which are business directory listings, and 10 unstructured citations. So like social citations, photo citations, video citations, PDF or document citations, like those kind of things. And that's a great service. If you're going to be building, like, again, for clients, I like to use that service because I know every single month I'm going to have really high quality citations built. And then all I do is just send them to an indexer when I get the report every month. But you can also find citations providers like, Marketer Center is one of them, Web 2.0 or Web 20 Ranker. I know they have sites. I've not tested theirs though. Marketer Center, I've tested their citations are pretty good. And they have a really, really good service there called local social mesh. If you have an actual business location and you're going to be building citations, again, I don't recommend building citations if it's a spammed GMB listing that you're going to use for lead gen. Don't build citations. You can do everything else with press releases and social citations that aren't structured citations or like business directories that require an address. Does that make sense? So it depends on what type of thing you're going to build. But if you do have a valid address, a real GMB location, then yes, build citations. And Marketer Center has this service called Local Social Mesh. It's fantastic. It's like $90 and you get like 60 business directory listings and 60 social citations. So you get 120 citations for like $90. And they interlink where possible. So those are really, really good. In fact, that's even listed in my GMB process checklist, which that's something else we should always mention at the beginning, Adam. gmbprocess.com. If you haven't got it yet, go to gmbprocess.com and just opt in. It's free. And you'll on the thank you page, you can get access to my GMB process checklist. And in there, I specifically list Marketer Center Local Social Mesh as one of the services that I use if it is a published or a valid business or GMB location. If it's not valid, then I omit that from the process and just go with social citations, which don't require a physical location, and press releases. A ton of press releases will also act as citations too, okay? Okay, so don't use Fiverr for that stuff, guys. There are much better services out there. Maybe there are some good providers on Fiverr, but over the years I've tested that a lot, and I've found that it's just better to go with the service that they're just set up for that. Okay. Build or buy an SEO Shield, Syndication Network, blah blah blah. Yes, that's always in the process. Develop the content over time, and add to all the sites through the Syndication Network and tools like OneUp App. Yeah. And again, I think it's most important if you're looking at my GMB process checklist, I specifically talk about tier 1 entity assets. There's a whole section on tier 1 link building in the process checklist that I talk about that. And yeah, just, you don't have to do everything in that. I've mentioned that several times. In fact, you know what? Let me pause the screen for 1 minute. I'm just going to pull this up. We'll go through this briefly. Just a minute, guys. All right. All right, I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So tier 1 link building, guys, again, this is free. Just go get it at gmbprocess.com. I specifically talk about, right here, these are the different assets I like to build as tier 1 links. And I saw there was a question coming up about link diversity and such. And this was actually good because this will kind of like segue right into that question. But these are all like tier 1 entity assets that I recommend that, a lot of these are going to be built if you're going to do syndication networks or SEO shields anyways, because you're going to have an ID page, a G site landing page, press advantage organization page. You have the RYSG sheet, as SEO Power Shield has syndication network included. So all of these properties here, 301 redirects, you can set up on your own. I like to use my own branded link shortener that I just have a .link domain that I've purchased for my Tree Care HQ agency now that I use, that I shorten a ton of links for, and I built a lot of power into that. But MGYB, formerly MGYB, now it's the Heavy Hitter Club store. They have a link shortener, the MGYB link shortener that is also powerful. But whatever, I like to use 301 redirects to my CID map in my GMB website, not necessarily to the location landing page. That's a self-hosted page. But I try to treat all three of these as money sites, guys. I've been over this before in some of the other training. But then as far as like tier one entity tuned content, right? So like SEO or entity tuned content, if you take the time to develop some of that content for some of your tier one stuff. Now, remember, all of this stuff is going to be pretty much pre-built, right? With an SEO Shield order. But with syndication network properties, typically we just publish content to the money site, right? And then the RSS feed is going to auto syndicate and republish those blog posts to the syndication network properties. So that's all still valid. And there's, something to be said for extracting the post URLs, the syndicated post URLs from the syndication network properties. So Tumblr, Blogger, WordPress, and go actually extract those post URLs. For example, if you're publishing supporting articles within a particular silo, then you can go extract all of those. Like, let's say you got the top of silo page, and then you have like, say 4 supporting articles, right? So you got a total of 5. Then what you could do is actually go extract those post URLs for that specific silo from WordPress, Blogger, and Tumblr. And then now you have another set of link building targets, right? That you can set up, a link building campaign or purchase a link building campaign with a very specific set of keywords as anchor text that are going to build to those post URLs, which are going to have internal links from those syndication network post URLs up to the top of the top of silo page on your money site, right? So you understand you're creating, tiered links by building links to your syndication network properties, which are syndicated articles or blog posts from your money site that have internal links pointing up to the pages on your site that you want to rank, right? Does that make sense? So all of that is pretty much kind of automated because it's either been built for you by our builders, or if you do it in-house, whatever. But what I'm saying here is on your syndication network blog properties, so your branded properties, is go actually publish separate and unique articles that have been, well-tuned, well-drafted articles on Tumblr. So log into Tumblr, and not a syndicated post, but log into Tumblr and publish a unique entity-tuned or SEO-tuned blog post on Tumblr, where you can embed your your GMB map. You can embed your GMB website. You can link to your money site with specific anchor text, right? So that you can start to get your anchor text ratios right. Do the same thing in WordPress with a different article, different blog post. Do the same thing in Blogger, right? And then just go find other Web 2.0 properties that you set up as, I recommend you set them up as branded properties. As I mentioned before, local social mesh. If we go in here to entity assets, we're going to scroll down here, local social mesh right there, marketer center. It's $89. I even give you templates here for what you should be submitting when you submit your order. And when you get the order back, you're going to have a lot of these, a lot of different Web 2.0 assets that you can choose from that have been branded because you placed the order and they built it for you. That now you can log. These are just 3 that I like because I like the builders, like the page builders in them and all that kind of, like the editor essentially in them. But it doesn't have to be these guys. I even mentioned this in the checklist below. I say tuned content. Company.site, which is on, it's actually a site that you register that on ecwid.com or equivalent, right? Or Strikingly or equivalent, Yola site or equivalent. So it doesn't have to be these 3. It's just the 3 that I particularly like. But I just say or equivalent, Web 2.0 type of site that you can publish tier 1 entity tuned content on. And now those become your tier 1 assets that are, well optimized assets that you have very strict control over the anchor text ratios that are pointing to your location landing page, your money site, essentially, or your GMB website or your CID map URL, right? So I like to try to treat all 3 of those as kind of like money sites now. So I manipulate anchor text ratios at this level. And that's all I try to do. And again, I've taught this in the mastermind and in some other venues as well. If you guys want full training on like anchor text ratios and everything else, you have to come join the mastermind. It's as simple as that. But I give you specifically everything that I talk about right in here so that you can just follow this checklist, this process. And as I'm saying, you don't need to complete everything on here, guys. Like, unless you're in a really competitive area or location, in a competitive industry. And even in a competitive industry, it varies by location, right? The level of competition varies by location. Sometimes you'll be in a competitive industry, but you're in a non-competitive area, right? Where there's not a lot of competitors in that particular area. So it's a lot easier to rank at GMB. Right. So what I'm saying is this is everything that can be done that I've used. I've applied this to just over 20 different GMBs now, this entire process, or started to apply the entire process and been able to rank those GMBs into the 3-pack within 90 days by following this process. Every single time it's worked. Sometimes in more competitive areas, I have to do everything. But for the vast majority of stuff that I do, I at some point as I'm building out tier 1 and I start to power up tier 1 assets as they become built. So in other words, I build tier 2 link building to the tier 1 assets as the tier 1 assets get built. And so it's not that all of this has to be completed every time. During the process of, completing, this should be completed. Module 1, module 2, GMB post silos. Again, I've talked about this in multiple venues, but I do a GMB push silo for each one of the assets that I'm trying to push, which would be the location landing page, if there is one. A lot of GMB stuff that I do now doesn't even have a self-hosted website anymore. It's just the GMB website. But if it does have a location landing page, then I do a GMB push silo to the landing page, a GMB push silo to the GMB website, and a GMB push silo to the CID map URL, right? So I do 3 push silos, and then we just start link building to those silos, the post URLs from the silo, and embeds plus link building to those, right? And so what I'm saying is, as I go through this process and I start to build out, so these 3 get completed. The first 3 modules 100% get completed on every project. But then when it comes to link building, starting in module 4 here, all we do is start building out these assets again, as I'm just talked about here in this diagram, as well as it's listed down here, right? And as these get built, tier 2 link building starts to power those assets up. And so as we start working our way through the checklist, we'll start to see significant movement in maps. That, and we also do proximity push, which is click-through manipulation, using either a CT bot like Viper Tools, or Google Ads, or what I do is a combination of both Google Ads and a CTR manipulation tool such as Viper Tools, if that makes sense. But if you're adding traffic and engagement signals into the process as you're going through the build, then a lot of the times you'll start building links, this kind of module 4, and you'll start seeing significant movement. And what's great about that is you can get your desired result without having to complete everything, which means you have stuff left in reserve. And in the event that you start to slip in rankings and you need to push it again, or just to maintain your rankings over time, right? Which again, just boils down to, even if you're in a competitive industry, it's just a matter of, in fact, once you get all the tier 1 stuff built, it's really more about tier 2 link building, continuously powering up your tier 1 assets with your tier 2 link building strategy. And this is my strategy right here that I use to determine how I'm going to build tier 2 links. I get my search, my anchor text, the list of terms or search queries that I'm going to be using as anchor text. I get that from Search Console, right? And that's what I use specifically to build links to my tier 1 assets, are the search queries that Search Console provides. And if it's if it's for a project that does not have a self-hosted website, so there's no location landing page, it's just the GMB website. Well, fortunately, I'm in the same industry that I work with primarily just one industry now, which is tree service contractors. So I already have a ton of data from other projects that have Search Console properties. So I have already a big long list of search queries that people are actually searching for, if that makes sense. Okay. So moving on. Yes, you're always going to expand the drive stack to match any silos on your site, or if you're adding additional locations to your site, you also want to add a location shield or an expansion for each location as well. So however many silos you have on your site and however many locations, you can order either a location shield to expand for each location or an RYS expansion for each one of those, and it does the same. Okay. So anyways, again, go get the process checklist, guys, and go through that. Specifically, if you're doing GMB stuff, like, this is my version specifically of the Battleplan that I use, because all I do is GMB stuff, really. You know what I mean? So hopefully that makes sense.